For decades, the American middle-class dream has been quietly fading away. The security a single income used to provide is gone. Today, it takes two or more incomes just to cover the mortgage, medical bills, and groceries. Young workers stare down a reality where they might never live as well as their parents. And it isn't because they lack work ethic or education. It is because the money they earn purchases a little bit less every single day. Politicians are quick to point fingers, blaming the weather, foreign market speculators, or corporate greed. But these are convenient distractions from the actual root of the problem. The real mechanism driving this decline operates behind closed doors. The Federal Reserve controls our entire monetary system, yet it has no budget, faces no true independent audit, and answers to no congressional oversight. Hidden from public view, the Federal Reserve facilitates the steady depreciation of your savings. This mechanism siphons away your economic security, operating like a burglar in the night to take what you have earned without you ever seeing the theft. To understand how this happens, we have to look at what money is supposed to be. Historically, the free market chose precious metals like gold and silver. They were durable, easily divided, and crucially, strictly limited in supply. Paper money originally started as a simple convenience. In 16th century Europe, goldsmiths began storing heavy coins for a fee, handing out paper receipts. If you deposited 10 ounces of gold, you got receipts for exactly 10 ounces. But the goldsmiths noticed that rarely did everyone come to claim their gold all at once. So they started printing extra, unbacked receipts and loaning them out to collect interest. This broke the reliable one-to-one relationship between paper and metal. Suddenly, there were 3 or 4 paper claims circulating for every single physical ounce of gold actually sitting in the vault. This practice, known as fractional reserve banking, was essentially legalized counterfeiting. It allowed banks to artificially inflate the money supply, and it became the structural foundation of the American commercial banking system. By the early 20th century, the financial elite recognized an opportunity to consolidate this inflationary power on a national scale. In November 1910, 6 of America's most powerful bankers boarded a secret train under the guise of a duck hunting trip. Their destination was the exclusive Jekyll Island Club in Georgia, where they would spend a week drafting the blueprint for a central bank. Fierce competitors like J.P. Morgan and John D. Rockefeller put aside their rivalry. They both wanted cheap credit and an elastic currency supply to finance the rapid expansion of their massive industrial empires. They knew the American public would firmly reject a banking cartel if they understood its mechanics. So they sold the Federal Reserve to voters in 1913 as a lender of last resort, a safeguard that would supposedly prevent bank runs and protect depositors. The Fed serves as a protection mechanism for the industry that conceived it. By providing an endless supply of credit, it insulates fractional reserve banks from the natural consequences of their own insolvency. Today, the Fed exerts its power primarily through open market operations. It buys government securities from a handful of selected financial firms, using money it creates completely out of thin air. Imagine a small reserve of real wealth at the bottom of a pyramid, say $100. Based on that small reserve, the central bank prints up $1,000 in new notes and deposits them into commercial banks. Because commercial banks are required to hold just 10% of deposits in reserve, they take that newly created $1,000 and loan the rest out. Through the banking system, fractional reserve lending multiplies that money into $10,000 of checkbook credit. When this flood of new currency enters the economy, the people closest to the printing press, the government, big banks, and federal contractors, get to spend it first while prices are still low. By the time that money circulates down to the average worker's paycheck, the increased supply has driven up the cost of groceries, the cost of housing, and of gas. The purchasing power of the dollar has already evaporated. Inflation is a precise, mechanical transfer of wealth from the citizens at the bottom of the pyramid to the political and financial elites at the top. This artificial credit expansion also sends entirely false signals to investors. By flooding the market with cheap money and driving down interest rates, the Fed sets off massive economic booms that cannot be sustained. During the Roaring '20s, Fed policies fueled massive speculation in the stock market. When they inevitably stopped inflating the money supply, the bubble burst, leading directly to the 1929 Wall Street crash and the Great Depression. Rather than letting the bankrupt system clear, the government doubled down. In 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt confiscated the public's gold and scrapped the domestic gold standard, allowing the Fed to print the billions needed for his massive New Deal programs. Decades later, the mounting costs of the Vietnam War and sweeping social welfare programs caught up with the Treasury. Facing billions in foreign debt, Richard Nixon severed the final link between the U.S. dollar and international gold reserves in 1971. With the physical anchor completely removed, the final check on dollar creation vanished. The result has been an inflation rate of over 300% since 1971, and a federal budget that hasn't been balanced since. Mainstream economic theory looks to central bankers to steer the country through financial instability. In reality, the Federal Reserve and its network of commercial banks function as the primary drivers of chronic inflation and erratic business cycles. To stop the systemic theft of middle-class savings, the Federal Reserve's monopoly on money creation must end. The alternative is a return to a market-determined currency, specifically a strict 100% gold standard. Under a full gold standard, fractional reserve banking becomes impossible. Banks would be required to keep all deposits on hand to meet customer claims, completely removing their ability to artificially expand credit. The tangible benefits of anchoring our money to physical reality are immense. Purchasing power stabilizes, retirement savings remain secure, artificial booms and busts disappear, and a tight, unbreakable leash is placed on runaway government spending. We have a choice to make about the kind of money we use. We can tolerate a paper fiat system engineered to devalue your labor and consolidate wealth at the top, or we can demand sound money that protects our savings and ensures lasting economic prosperity for future generations.